You are listening to the Fairways and Fundraising podcast, powered by Golf Event Planning, discussing charity fundraising and successful golf outings, along with tips and tricks of the trade. Now here's your host, Larry Battaglia.
Hello, and welcome to Fairways and Fundraising, powered by Golf Event Planning. I'm your host, Larry Battaglia. This is episode number 6, and today we're happy to have a really funny guy, great actor. We use him at so many different golf outings over the course of a season. Very funny man. He works all over in Las Vegas, Long Island, Atlantic City. You can see him on Amazon Prime Video. He has What's the Worst That Can Happen. Good friend of mine, Chris Monty.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, Chris, thanks very much for coming in and spending some time with us.
And it's funny, I always get introduced as like, oh, this guy's so funny. And then I do an interview and I'm like, I'm finished. I'm like, that wasn't funny. I just...
yeah, no. Definitely not in your case.
More funny in person.
But I got to tell you, man, every time I see you, whether it's at a golf outing or any one of the shows that we've been fortunate enough to attend, I can't stop crying. I'm laughing so hard.
Thank you. I try my hardest.
I always wondered, like, how did you get involved in the entertainment industry? And tell us a little bit about
how it all began.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the truth. This is the truth. When I was about 7 years old, and a lot of people don't know this, when I was about 7 years old, I saw on television Red Skelton for the first time. Yeah. And I fell in love because I just never forget. It was like a Saturday night. And my parents were like, "What are you going through the TV guide?" They don't do that anymore, but they had the TV guide.
The guide.
And my mother and father like, "What do you want to watch tonight?" And we were all a family, I had 3 kids. So my parents had to find something that was family suitable. And we had, I think HBO or WHT even back then. Remember that?
God,
Remember
yeah.
that? Like we didn't have, cable was on a box and it was one channel that showed movies and specials, but it wasn't like, that's how early it was. We didn't have the clicker now where you go, you have 1900 channels, right?
Yeah, right.
So my parents saw on the cable box that Red Skelton had a comedy special. And he was at the time in his 70s. And my parents said, "Oh, let's watch Red Skelton," because they know that the family could watch Red Skelton because he was clean. And I fell in love with Red Skelton and stand-up comedy at that moment. And that was it. That was all I could get for the next, few months was I used to find my father's Jose Jimenez albums. Remember Bill Dana, Jose Jimenez?
Wow, man.
And Rodney Dangerfield and George Carlin. My father had all these comedy records. Flip Wilson, all of. I couldn't get enough of it. I was just listening to comedy. Bill Cosby, everybody. And that's it. I started rehearsing monologues that I would hear from Red Skelton and from, Flip Wilson and whatever. And I would just do their monologues at family parties. I would put on a show everywhere I went. And that was it. I was like 7 and my destiny was I'm going to be a comedian when I get old. That's what I'm going to do.
That's incredible. I mean, at such a young age.
Yeah. And that's all I was infatuated with Jack Benny and all the old times, that my grandparents would watch and my parents would watch. And then my parents were kind of not, my aunt wanted to put me in commercials and plays and stuff. And she said, "I'll bring them to auditions." And my parents were kind of against it. They were like, "We don't want a child in show business," because they've heard horror stories about them being drug addicts and all this,
Yeah, so, and they're probably looking like for a more like stable environment, I guess.
I mean, I never let
from their perspective,
right? And I never let it go. I put on shows with my friends, my cousins. We were like the Little Rascals. We'd set up sketches and stuff and put on shows in the neighborhood for different people in their backyard. And then when I got to be like in high school and stuff like that, I kind of phased away from it a little bit. I was too cool to be in drama class and stuff like that. So when I was about 25 years old. I didn't go to college. I went to work right after school and after high school.
What would you, what were you doing?
I was doing everything from construction to being a waiter to
anything to fuel the dream, right?
Yeah, I just was totally not into working for a living, I wasn't. So
I know the feeling.
Then my last job was do you remember a company called Nextel?
Yes.
They had the cell phones with the walkie-talkies in them.
Oh, man.
Sprint bought them. But so I worked for Nextel, and I used to fix the phones. And you come in and say, "Oh, I dropped my phone, but I'd get you a new phone." That's what I did. And so during that period, I did a commercial for PC Richard and Son. And then after the PC Richard and Son commercial come out, I had been doing stand-up comedy. I've been moonlighting, every night on the weekends, going into work dead ass tired because, I got home at 3 a.m. and I had to be up at 6:30 for work. And I was just brutal. But also I was 24, 25 years old, so I can handle it.
Yeah.
So my boss, I go in to tell my boss that I'm quitting after Christmas because I just got booked into Atlantic City at the Borgata. And never forget
what a
it.
feeling is
December
that, huh?
of 2003. And they just opened the Borgata. Yeah, it was like my first real big week-long gig. And my boss sits down and he goes, "Were you in a commercial?" And I didn't tell anybody at my job that I worked as a comic. I kept that separate. And I said, "No, I wasn't in a commercial." He goes, "Yes, you are. I saw a commercial last night, a PC Richard." And he goes, "You were in that commercial." And I said, "No, it must be somebody that looked like me." He goes, "Come on." He goes, Don't BS me." I said, "Yeah, it was me." He goes, "Oh, I didn't know you did that." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, matter of fact, now that we're talking," I said, "I want to put in 2 weeks notice." And he goes, "Oh, I was just going to make you a manager of the new branch and give you a raise." And I said, "Listen, I can't do this getting up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to be in show business. I'm going to work at night. And that was it. So since 2003, I've been doing this professionally without a day job. I started my career, professionally in 1998.
That's incredible. And, and again, I mean, you make one wrong decision there and now all of a sudden you're not doing what you love, that you have a passion for.
Yeah. And my parents were skeptical because they were like, "Why don't you wait until you get something substantial in show business before you quit your job and give up benefits and all that crap?" But I said to my father, I said, "I'm giving 40 plus hours a week to somebody right now. And it's not my business. It's not my company. I need to put the 40 hours plus into my own brand, into my own company, into me to make, this career go." And you know what? Since then, I'm blessed. I haven't looked back and I work, I work a lot. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I follow you all over on Instagram and, your website. Instagram is Chris Monty Live and your website is chrismontylive.com. You're also on YouTube.
Yep.
Just recently you launched that Amazon Prime video, "What's the Worst That Can Happen?"
What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely funny.
Thank you. Were you there when we taped it?
No, I was there the following year.
And you came this year and the year after.
Yeah. At Madison Theater, right?
And we have there's a new sketch web series I'm launching starting in February 2020 on YouTube. It's called Everything Old is New Again. And it's starring myself, my good friend Rich Walker. We do very, very quick, very short, funny sketches, street jokes that you've heard 20 years ago, 30 years ago, forgot about.
I think I saw a couple of promos.
Right. So you saw it at our we're going to be launching that show February 2020. So stay tuned for that too.
Oh, that's great. And, you've also starred in some TV shows and also some movies. You were on HBO with.
Yeah, I was on vinyl. With
a lot of people don't know that you were in costume.
Yeah, right? I was in the full beard and wig and the tight corduroy pants that so tight you could tell what religion I am. You understand? And that was Martin Scorsese produced. And Mick Jagger produced. I didn't get to meet them. They weren't on the set, but that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, they canceled that. I was on Kevin Can Wait on CBS with my friend Kevin James. Unfortunately, they can't. Everything I've been on in the last 3 years has been canceled. I hope it's not me.
Well, hopefully this show won't be canceled.
Yeah, no. This will rock on.
I also know you've done a variety of fundraisers, some things with us, with our golf outings that we run. You also do some things on your own. You're involved with some of the union guys that we work with and their causes. So tell us a little bit about some of those shows that you perform on. You've been on some boat cruises with them.
Oh, yeah, with your good friend Tony Klein, Tony LaCava, and what union is that? I always forget.
BAC Local 1.
Yeah, Local 1. I must see those guys twice a year. I mean, between their golf outing and then I've done their boat cruise, which is around Manhattan Island, that was beautiful. Brought my wife. I've done all your events for Casa, that big one we just did, and all the different ones there. It's so funny. They're really great. I love doing them, but there's a skill to it, like because you've had other guys. If I didn't have the experience, and thanks to you, I'm getting more experience for being in different situations in different venues, because it's not like when I go to a theater and I get on stage and everybody coming there to see me. or I'm going to a comedy club and they're coming out and they're buying a ticket to see me and they're ready for the comedy show. Your event, they're playing golf all day. You know, they're eating, they're drinking, they're mingling, they're networking. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, by the way, guys, shut up for 20 minutes. Here's a comic. If you don't have control, you know, you can get lost in that kind of situation. So it's something I can give credit to my good friend Rich Walker, who's in the show with me coming up, the sketch show. He taught me when I was brand new in comedy, work every kind of venue you can work, whether it's a bar, a private party at a restaurant, I've done shows, Larry, in people's homes. I've gotten hired. This one guy has a Christmas party. Now, I don't do them anymore. So if you're listening and you want to hire me for your Christmas party, if it's at a venue, I'll do it, but I'm not coming. But I actually stood.
Well, you're very busy. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I mean, you travel all over the country to do these shows. All
over. I Vegas, Atlantic City. In fact, I'm going to be
in the Poconos a lot.
I'm in the Poconos. I'm going to be this coming Saturday. I'm going to be in Villa Roma up in the Catskills. I'm going to be shooting a TV show, actually a web show called Dry Bar Comedy. I'm going to be shooting an episode of that on January 31st in Utah. Right outside, Provo, Utah, which is about 2 hours from Salt Lake City. But that'll be coming out. We shoot it live, but then they edit it and air it on an episode, which is, if you have drybarcomedy.com, check it out. I will be on there in season 6, which is coming out this winter.
Back to the golf outings, and you know, like you said, there's a certain way that you have to approach that type of comedy night. From our perspective, my perspective, from running these golf outings for so many years, number one is everybody's trying to outdo the next event that's, you know, nearby. There's so much competition in the golf outing space, and we always try to educate people on the cause that they're donating to. But I think it's also important to add a little entertainment, to add a little levity to the situation and make it, you know, a fun night. Right. I think injecting a little comedy into the event, I think, is a home run, and you always execute.
It's a good, if you're going to have an entertainer, a comedian for that event, I think would be much more well received than maybe a singer or something like that they might not pay attention to. The one thing I was going to say about your events, which I love, and I say this to you every time we're at an event, I love that I'm seeing more women at these events than I used to see, because it used to just be guys. And it's cool, but when it's just guys won't behave. So they either heckle, they'll get drunk, or they want to hear really dirty jokes. Where as far as your crowd, you got women, it's classy. Every time, all your events are very classy.
Well, you know, thank you. You know, but part of that reason is, you know, when we advertise that Chris Monty is going to be the performer at night, now all of a sudden you add a dinner element to the golf outing, where in the past, golf outings have always struggled to get those extra dinner guests. You know, the guys can golf during the day and then the spouses can come at night.
Right.
You know, it's a more inclusive environment, which again, I think means, you know, the charity is raising more awareness. They're raising more money because more people are buying raffle tickets. They're buying auction items. And they're having a fun day.
It's
and
a night out,
remember. Right.
It's funny because when I'm pulling up, because I don't go early and do the whole golf thing. I come, you know, you tell me, hey, you're going on at 7, try to get there at 5:30, mingle, have a drink. I always get there. When I'm getting there, when I'm pulling in, I see a lot of the women pulling in, and they're all walking in, and I'm like, oh, they just got off work maybe, and they're coming now to have their dinner, and I go, oh, this is great. When I see women, I get excited. I go, great. Now it's like you could do more of your act and do more of, you know, a cleaner set, you know?
Yep. So yeah, and I mean, the way you can adjust to any type of crowd, I've really never seen anybody be able to do it as well as you do.
I've learned the hard way. That was years of hard work. I was at a show. I'll tell you, want to hear some horror stories?
Yeah.
I was in a show one time. A friend of mine, when I started out, he used to run a show in this bar. And this was a blue-collar, you know, guys getting off work of construction and plumbing and whatever, where guys went to sit and drink before they had to go home and face their wives. And I don't know why he picked this bar. It was in Plainview to do comedy in. But I'm on stage. It's like 7 o'clock at night on like a Wednesday. And I'm on stage, and there's like maybe one table of people watching, about 6 or 7 guys at the bar, just drinking, you know, like Boilermakers, just men drinking beer and shots of whiskey. And one guy turns around, he throws a wrench at the stage, an
actual wrench,
like a monkey wrench, like a big wrench. And I was like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, I
was at one show. Nobody was laughing. The guy at the bar looks at me and he yells out. He doesn't heckle me. He goes, hey, I'll buy you a drink if you get off now. And I go, you know what? I can't top that. So I'm going to get off and get my free drink.
I mean, how do you get most of your gigs?
Now it's different. That was in like the beginning of my career when you had to do anything to get on stage and get experience and network and let people know who you are. But now I work with a couple different agencies. I have a manager. So
did you, when you started this career 100% of your time, did you have a manager back in 2003?
Yeah, no, I didn't have a manager. I had been doing comedy 5 years at the time when I quit my day job, and I just, networking,
Yep.
I knew the club owners here on Long Island. They knew me. They would book me in all 3 different clubs. I knew a couple of agents that don't sign you, but they look for acts that, like now, the whole circuit in Pennsylvania that I've been working with this company that books that for, close to 20 years now. So,
wow, yeah.
And they're still in business, and they're still booking all the resorts and the stuff out in the Poconos, and I still do all those. I'll be out there the weekend before Christmas in the Poconos.
Wow, that's coming up.
I know, before you know it.
So you do many holiday events?
I do a lot. Matter of fact, we just had Thanksgiving, so now the holiday season starts for me on the 4th of December as my first Christmas show, and I have about a dozen of them that run right up until New Year's, as well as club dates on the weekends.
Yeah. And when do you take time off? And now, you're newly married and a dad.
So it's like I so look forward to going home after shows and being with my baby, and I also look so forward to going on the road and just getting to the hotel and sleeping.
That's true, no doubt about it.
Although my baby is almost 6 months old now, so she's starting to sleep. Like last night, she slept for like 8.5 hours through the night. So that's she's
man,
sleeping.
you're a lucky
very
dad.
Lucky. We're very lucky. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So I mean, obviously your act has changed a little bit now that you're married, and
you've seen me come from single guy to married guy to father as long as I've been working with you, right?
Yeah, I kind of miss those singles.
Yeah, I know.
I got to be honest.
Not
with
for
you,
nothing, so do I. I miss the bachelor pad. I'll have to bring some back for you.
Oh man, but I mean, I hate to give up any of your material.
You can give up an old one. I don't care.
But I'll tell you, like one of your newer ones about the reveal parties. And that, you got to get the room ready. Don't you want to know?
Right.
Yeah. We live in a studio apartment. The room's ready.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's so true nowadays.
And now we're buying a house. Did I tell you we're buying a house?
Oh, no.
We're buying a house. We're buying a house in Floral Park.
Oh, yeah.
Long Island,
Floral Park. That's great.
We're moving.
So you live in
Queens.
Beach? Oh, Queens.
No, we live in Forest Hills, Queens.
Okay. So now you're going to be moving
a little bit east,
island.
Not too far. It's right on the borderline of Queens and Nassau County, but it's on the Nassau County side. So we need a bigger house for our little girl and all her crap, all her toys and the clothes. She's a woman, so she's already got 18 pairs of shoes.
And are you closer to family?
Yes, especially my daycare, which is my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They'll be like 3 minutes away, and my father is about 5-7 minutes away, and so it's a lot easier for everybody to visit. And now they can come and park in my driveway, come in the house instead of where we live now. You got to drive around, look for a spot.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the city where we live,
Yeah, I completely understand. But I'll tell you, Floral Park's a nice neighborhood, and there's some nice little spots there to catch a game.
Yes.
I know you're a huge sports fan, huge Islander and Jet fan.
Yep.
So,
unfortunately, with the Jets and the Mets.
Yep. And you like to cook. So tell me what Sundays in the Monty household
Matter of fact,
like.
I'm going to, this Sunday, I'll probably be doing it usually traditional now that the holidays are over, the Thanksgiving's past us. I'm up at about 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday. Got a big pot of Sunday gravy going.
Oh, man,
nice tomato sauce, sausage.
I'm coming over.
I got good. My butcher, who I'll always give a plug to, if anybody's in Queens, in Forest Hills, Metro Meats on Metropolitan Avenue, the best, they butcher and full caterer, deli counter, the whole bit, and I go to them for all my meats and all my party. But I make homemade meatballs and sausage and brajol and from the Italian upbringing that we both probably grew up with our grandparents, right? You just got Sundays is macaroni and tomato sauce and so I watch my football.
And what is your favorite team? It's the Jets.
Unfortunately,
right?
The Jets. I wish I was at the Joe Namath fundraiser just so I could meet my idols, Broadway Joe. Yeah, I watch the Jets, who's unfortunately now they're winning. Now that, the fans want the coach out, they want to lose for the draft pick. So my brother goes, great. They'll go 8-8. They'll pick 20th, and they'll keep this idiot coach. And next year he'll rear his ugly head and show that he stinks. So
I mean, what do you think of the coach?
I wasn't a fan of Adam Gase. I mean, the guy has a losing record in Florida, and you got Mike McCarthy in the building, and you let him walk out and you hire a guy with a losing record over a guy that made the playoffs 9 years in a row, won a Super Bowl, and drafted Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what the comparison is just,
yeah,
you know.
I know what you mean. I mean, I'm always a fan of going with,
the winner.
Been there, done that, and, proven record, which is another reason why we always look to hire you and refer you to all our golf outing clients, because, I mean, I've seen the way you can just command a room when you work these events for us. It's tough when someone hasn't walked the walk or talked the talk before. It's really hard to kind of gamble on them.
Yeah, and like I said, going even back to horror stories, I've done events where you've learned, what to do. I was at 9/11 Widows for 9/11 fundraiser, and here they got the big screen up, and they're showing the guy, and his wife and kids are crying, and the priest is talking, and they give the prayer, and then it's now. Please welcome Chris Monty. And I look at the priest, I go, you got to take an intermission. You cannot bring me out after that.
That's a really tough transition.
Yeah. So once you learn how to, do those little things that make it better for me. Like I always tell you, make sure the music's off. Make sure they're ready for me. Let them know there's going to be a comedian. I always tell people the one most important thing is don't surprise them with a comedian, because it's not like a singer where they can talk through it. If they don't know there's a comedian coming on, that's something you need the attention for. So if they don't know people want to hire me all the time and go, oh, we want to surprise the crowd with you. I go, no, I won't do the event unless they know I'm coming. Because if they don't know I'm coming, it's very hard to stop your mingling and your networking and to go, I'm going to listen to this stranger? Who's this guy talking,
We hope you liked this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. We appreciate it. We're talking to Chris Monty. Again, it's chrismontylive.com, and his Instagram is Chris Monty Live. Again, his last name is Monty.
If you go to my website, Larry, right on the homepage, you can click to any of my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's a link right at the homepage, and it brings you right to my social media pages.
Oh, that's great.
So,
nice and
easy.
So all your tour dates are on there too. So what do you have coming up? I know you touched a little bit on some of your
little Villaroma, little Poconos. As I said, I will be taping for Dry Bar Comedy at the end of the January month, and locally for the Long Island listeners, if you want to come catch me and then maybe tell Larry to put me at your golf outing, I will be at the Governor's Comedy Club at the Brokerage in Belmore, Long Island, January 17th and 18th. Check it out. It'll be me and two other comedians who I don't know who is on the show with me right now, but I'll be the headlining comedian, and come out. There's one show on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday.
You also do some comedy shows at some of these country clubs too, where basically you're putting the whole event together with other comics that you work with.
I just worked at the Crescent Club in Huntington in the first weekend in November. I met another idol of mine, Clark Gillies, Jethro, as we call him, from the New York Islanders, who was actually, I had met him in 2000 and...
Back when they didn't wear helmets.
The good old days. And the fights with Terry O'Reilly. And let me tell you something, for a bruiser, the nicest guy you want to meet.
You're right.
Very nice guy.
He's, speaking of comedians, he thinks he's a stand-up comedian.
He's pretty funny.
Yeah, well, he's no Chris Monty, but he is very funny.
I met him actually in 2013. I met Clark Gillies. I was doing a roast for Long Island legend Richie Minervini. We call him the godfather of Long Island comedy. And he was sitting at a table. Clark Gillies was sitting at a table watching the roast with Kevin James and Kevin James' wife and Clark's wife. And I was on stage, and I came off. They did 2 daises. So they did a dais, an intermission, then a second dais, because they had that many people that were going to go up and speak. And we only did 5 minutes each, But when I came off at the intermission, I came off and I sat down. And unbeknownst to me, I'm sitting next to Kevin James. So
is that how you met him?
That's how I met Kevin James. But at the moment, I wasn't looking at Kevin James. So my buddy who's next to me, and my now manager, my best friend growing up, Mr. Mark Lund, he taps me and he goes, do you see who you're sitting next to? Now I'm looking directly at Clark Gillies, who's sitting across from Kevin. And I go, yeah, that's Jethro. He goes, where? I go, right there. He didn't see him. I go, that's Clark Gillies right there. He goes, oh, crap. He goes, I was talking about Kevin James. I go, Kevin James is here? He goes, he's right next to you. I look over. Kevin James leans over. He goes, you were very funny. His wife goes, oh, my God, I loved you. And something in common with Kevin, which I found out afterwards, Kevin's wife is Filipino, and my brother's wife is Filipino. So I was like, oh, my sister-in-law's from the Philippines, and we hit it off, and really nice. And after that meeting.
He seems like a great guy.
Kevin's a great guy. Kevin called me a month later and said, hey, I want to put you in Mall Cop 2. And he put me in Mall Cop 2. And didn't have to audition, nothing, just called me and said, you're in. But that night, I sat at the bar after the event and had 2 or 3 beers with Clark Gillies, and we talked Islanders hockey, and it was like one of the greatest nights of my life.
I know. Yeah, he I'm telling you, he'll talk to you for hours. He really
Great
will.
guy.
Yep.
And, you know, that's people say to me, oh, I've worked with Joan Rivers. I worked with Kevin James. I worked with Paul Reiser. Oh, who's the greatest? Do you get, shell shocked? Do you get nervous? And I said, no, when I meet my sports heroes, I get more like enthralled in it. Like when I meet another actor, another comedian, that even if they're famous, I think, we're in the business together. I admire you. I love your work. I work with Dom Irrera, just great guys, But I was in a bar in South Jersey about 10 years ago doing a show in this comedy club. So afterwards we go to the bar, and who walks out with his entourage, who was at the show, and it was Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Oh, man.
And let me tell you something. Another guy, one of the nicest, God rest his soul, because he passed away a couple years ago, but one of the nicest guys. We sat, Larry, at the bar. The show ended at midnight, and we sat at the bar till 3:30 in the morning. Me, the club owner, the other comedian that was on the show, Smokin' Joe, his girlfriend, and about 3 or 4 people in his party. We sat at the bar and talked Ali, Frazier, we talked Norton, Frazier, we talked, and couldn't be a nicer guy in the world. And when he had a cane at the time, and he was, getting a little bit on in his years, even though he was in his late 60s, when he shook my hand, he could still break stone with it, just like,
Yeah.
and, but one of the nicest guys. And the last thing he said to me before he walked out, he goes, you know what? And Ali was still alive at the time. He goes, you know why Ali can't talk anymore? And I said, no. He goes, because he won 45 rounds with me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you watch those old fights, they beat the hell out of each other, those guys. But I love meeting my sports heroes. That's why I like coming to your events, because every now and again, you got great sports. Marty Lyons on the island, and Joe Namath, and all the greats.
Years ago, you also worked the Frank Catalanato Foundation golf outing that we do every year. And you met Frank Catalanato, former baseball player.
And there was one of the guys from the New York Islanders also was at one of your events. I can't think of his name. He played in the 90s, in the early 90s. I don't remember which event it was, but
it could have been, the Bricklayer event. It could have been like Brian Mullen or Benoit Hogue, perhaps.
It wasn't Hogue. It was. I can't think of his name now. It escapes me, but I'll think of it I'm sure when the show's over.
Yeah, right. So, out of all the events that you've done, and, of course, not all of them are fundraisers, but some of the fundraisers, and, this is a lot about our business and what we do, but are there any moments that, you just, you felt like it was just a moving experience, maybe done something for a charity or...
Well, when we did the CASA one, they were raising money for a really good cause, right? For his daughter.
That's right, cancer research.
Yeah, so anything cancer related, I really get moved. My mother passed away from cancer, and she was a breast cancer survivor, and her 2 sisters were breast cancer survivors, all within a year apart from each other. So they started an organization to raise money to research cancer as well. So a lot of the ones that are cancer related is dear to my heart because of it runs in, my mother's side of the family. And there's not anybody in the world that doesn't know somebody or personally wasn't touched by that ugly disease. So when we're raising money for a good cause like that, it's really, it makes me feel like I'm giving back,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So, do you like doing these golf outings now? You seem to be just right at home when you come in and...
Listen, shrimp cocktail, a couple of drinks, and it's a Monday.
Yeah. It's a Monday, usually in the middle of nowhere sometimes.
That's
right?
fine. I don't care. Hey, listen, anytime you can work and you get like these are what I call, these are great gigs because these pay the rent, these help out. Like when you're doing, your comedy career and you're on the weekends and you're working and then all of a sudden you can start to get these weekday events and they're great events. It's not like you're trudging in, going, oh, this is going to be horrible. You go, this is going to be great. I'm going to see Larry and his wife and your staff is phenomenal. And I know Ken, the sports guy, and all your whole crew now. I know all of them over the years. So that's like I made new friends. I got a new family. And a lot of the golf guys, I walk in and a lot of the guys that are playing, oh, we're so glad you're here. you? Good to see you. Like we're family. They're hugging me, It's like great. So I feel at home now. I look forward to them. It's my wife gets jealous. She goes, I want to come to one of these golf events with you. She says, you come home. You always said you had so much fun. They were so great. I said, all right, I'll have to bring you. I'll bring you to one of the good ones next year.
Yeah, that's what I get out of it. When you get done performing and these guys are leaving, the guys, the wives, they all come up to you and they all say, wow, they were moved. We try to move them with an emotional experience talking about the charity, but then they're laughing and they leave on a high. And right. I really think doing these events for so many years, I think it's really important that your guests leave on a high.
And they want more, and I go on just enough. I don't do a really, really long set. I do just a little bit here, and it's just enough to give them a little bit of an entertainment, a show. And like I said, they had a great day. All the venues you use, you have great meals, great food. And it is. And if God willing, you get the weather for it. I remember one that you had and we got rained out. You said, can you get here at 1:00? Because these guys are inside. There's nothing to do. And then you said, out of hell with it. We got to cancel and do it a different day.
Yeah.
But you've been lucky for the most part. All the events I've done for you, you got Mother Nature on your side. So
yeah, and it's one thing you can't control, but you just got to roll the dice.
That's it. What are you going to do,
So anyway, Chris, I just want to thank you again for coming by and talking to us a little bit about what made Chris Monty,
yes,
and also all the great organizations and stories that you have. You got to have a few stories from home with a newborn.
Oh yeah, I got a lot.
Are we going to save that for the comedy act or?
What for when they come and see me in 2020 at one of the events? I got some, well, here's the thing. It's a whole new world. It's a whole new world for me being a dad and taking on everything. And now for the first few months, my wife is breastfeeding the baby, which is like any woman out there who's listening. If you don't breastfeed, I don't judge anybody because my wife's like trapped, but it's like a whole new world. So we needed help with this. So there's a lactation consultant. They don't want you to use nothing artificial, no pacifier, no nothing, right? So the woman comes to the house to help us out and she's sitting there and there's nothing more beautiful, Larry, than my baby on my wife's breast and it's natural, it's bonding. And the woman looks at me and she goes, your daughter sucks very good. And I said, hey, no father wants to hear that, okay?
Again, it's Chris Monty Live. You go to his website, all his social handles are there. You got to check him out. Check out his tour dates. Really one of the funniest guys in show business. I'm proud to call him a friend. And Chris, happy holidays to you, your wife, and your family. It's going to be a special one now with the newborn.
Absolutely. First Christmas coming up. We can't wait. And thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to doing more of your events in the coming year.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Fairways and Fundraising Podcast, powered by Golf Event Planning. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and please remember to subscribe, rate, and review.